You're watching City Channel 4, your window to our community.
Thank you all so much for coming to our program. We've been working for several months to put together an easy to chew, easy to swallow program. We know that we have many patients and folks in our community who have a need for altered texture diets, so we're really excited to be talking about this today. We have fantastic speech therapists here at Mercy. So I'm very pleased to introduce Tara Aducci and Amanda Morano-Vilhauer. They are absolutely fantastic at what they do and also passionate about taking great care of our patients. So it's really exciting to have them here talking today. We also have our executive chef here at Mercy, Ron Hall. He's gonna demonstrate a few recipes a little later on. Absolutely a fantastic chef. He does so much in our community, so we're thrilled to have him here today, and I'm really excited to sample it as well. So there's that piece. I'm Stacy Munson. I'm the director of the dietary department here at Mercy, and I'm just really excited to be involved in this. And then we also have Mary McCarthy. She's our education coordinator, and she has helped to facilitate this happening here today. So some absolutely great folks here. So thank you so much for coming. We are a pretty informal group, so if you have questions and things, we will certainly have some time for that. So we don't want you to be shy at all and want to make sure we get any of your questions that you have today answered. So with that, I will turn it over to Tara and Mandy.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for coming. So as Stacy mentioned, this presentation today will be about swallowing and some easy to eat, easy to chew foods. Dysphagia, or swallowing trouble, is the inability to swallow regular foods or liquids safely and efficiently. So safely meaning that we take the food down the right way into the stomach and never into the lungs, and efficiently meaning that it doesn't take an extreme amount of effort to get through a meal to get your nutrition. Dysphagia is very common. So in the US, dysphagia affects between 300,000 and 600,000 people a year, but they're in all settings. So 68% of people in nursing facilities will experience some swallowing trouble. About 30% of elderly who are admitted to the hospital will have some trouble. 64% of people after a stroke might have some trouble swallowing, and 13 to 38% of elderly who live independently in our community will also have some difficulty eating and drinking. So that's why we're here today. Dysphagia, or difficulty swallowing, can lead to lots of difficulties, beginning with malnutrition and dehydration. It is absolutely vital to keeping us alive that we take our nutrition and hydration. Another risk of dehydration is urinary tract infections or constipation. Aspiration pneumonia is something that Tara and I as speech therapists are very concerned with. Aspiration pneumonia is pneumonia that occurs when food or drink repeatedly gets into the lung, which can cause an infection, a very serious infection. It can be a difficult to handle infection because it will come back because that food or drink is perhaps continuing to go down the wrong way. Also, it results in longer stays in the hospital. So if you have a swallowing problem and come into the hospital, you're likely to stay for a little bit longer than the rest of our folks. And increased hospital readmission, so just in general spending more time with us in the hospital. Reduced quality of life, part of that can be spending more time in the hospital with us, but also more frustration with eating or reduced enjoyment in your meal times or in any time when we enjoy food. Food is a very important part of our social lives. Rarely do we have an event that doesn't have some sort of food. Even today, this is all around food. So that can definitely reduce your quality of life if you're not able to participate. And then depression. It's hard not to be able to eat what you want to eat. Many illnesses and conditions that can cause trouble swallowing. They are everything from stroke or some neurologic diseases like myasthenia gravis, dementia, Parkinson's disease, but also just simply the aging process. As we get older, things slow down a little bit, and the same as our swallowing. We'll show a video a little bit later on that kind of just shows a younger swallow versus an older swallow, and you'll see that though there's nothing wrong with the older swallow, it's just a lot more effortful. Oral head and neck cancer treatments, complications from intubation, complications from a cervical spine surgery or any kind of surgery would be dealing with this area, and many, many, many other reasons. Some signs of swallowing problem. There are these and there are many, many more. So the feeling of something being stuck in your throat or in your chest. If you're coughing while you're eating or swallowing or afterward. If you feel like you get kind of a wet voice when you're eating, that can be a sign of some trouble. Having unexpected weight loss, being fearful of eating, not wanting to go out to eat, that can be a sign that things aren't going so well with your swallowing. And then if things take more effort, so if swallowing liquids takes a little more time and effort, or pills or solids. Meats and breads are something we hear a lot about. Are you finding that you hold some food in one side of the cheek or another? Or is it just stressful to have a meal? Any of those would be signs that you're having some trouble with swallowing. So in the case that you are, whether you've been seen by a speech therapist or not, it's a good idea to get your swallowing worked up in that case if you are having trouble, to find out what's going wrong, and then if there's anything we can do to work on that to fix it. So if you're having trouble swallowing, the first step would be to contact your physician, your primary care physician, your neurologist, ENT, gastroenterologist, pulmonologist. Any of those folks would be happy to hear about your complaints with swallowing, and then those folks would then, those doctors would then refer you on to a speech therapist for an evaluation, either a clinical bedside evaluation where we would just kind of have you eat and drink your normal foods and watch and listen from the outside, or whether it be a video fluoroscopic swallow study, and that's an x-ray we do, a motion x-ray that we'll do in radiology, where we'll give you some foods and liquids and be able to watch them under x-ray. But whatever assessment we decide to do, afterward we'll be able to give you some recommendations on textures, perhaps any compensatory strategies like tucking a chin or a head turn that might be effective for someone, or modifying those textures then. So this will show us kind of what swallowing looks like. This is one of those x-ray swallows I mentioned. We'll watch it a couple of times so you can get your eyes on it. The one on the left is our younger swallow. The one on the right is, did I say that one? The one on the left is the younger swallow, thank you. And the one on the right is the aging swallow. So we'll play that again, would you mind? Yeah. So you can see mostly that the timing is a big difference. The one on the younger swallow moves much more quickly, whereas you can see that other one is still dealing with that food and drink in the mouth there. You can see how much more leftover there is in the aging swallow, and that's a normal aging swallow. So there's nothing wrong with that swallow. It's just you can see how much more effortful swallowing gets as we age. Let's go one more time just so you can really see it and feel like you know it. And then Tara's going to talk a little bit about how to alter our textures.
All right. Thanks, Mandy. So my name is Tara Aducci. I'm the other speech language pathologist here at Mercy Hospital, and I'm going to kind of go over some common terminology that's associated with dysphagia diets. So if we start with liquid consistencies, thin liquid or regular liquid is flows very quickly. It would be similar to just like a water, a soda, coffee, tea. A regular beverage is our thin liquid. Nectar thick liquid is the slightly more viscous than thin. It's liquid that kind of coats and drips off a spoon like a lightly set gelatin. So we can think of a tomato juice or chocolate milk being naturally nectar thick. Just flows a little bit slower than water. Next highest in viscosity would be a honey thick liquid. And really think of actual honey. So kind of flows very slowly, almost like a ribbon. It just, like I said, flows much slower than a nectar or thin liquid. And then our thickest liquid is pudding thick. So again, like pudding, it really kind of stays on the spoon in a soft mass and then just falls off the spoon, again, kind of staying in a soft mass together. So Mandy's actually going to just give you guys a quick little visual of how quickly things flow. So starting with the thin liquid, just water, you can see how quickly that moves and really how messy it can get. So water is going to require a lot more control to move that liquid to the back part of our throat safely, and not a lot of effort or strength. It really moves quite quickly, as you can see. Whereas pudding, at the opposite end of the spectrum, isn't moving at all. So she took the wrapper off the top, and it stays together in a soft mass. And again, if we think of that as we're swallowing, it's going to require a lot more effort or strength to get that to the back part of our throat, but not as much control as that water would. Thank you, Mandy. Then if we talk about some terms associated with foods, so kind of starting with the level 1 or dysphagia puree diet, where everything is really soft and smooth. So there's not going to be any lumps or chunks. It doesn't really require any chewing. Some patients who are simply edentulous benefit from a puree diet just because it doesn't require any chewing. Let's see. The next level would be kind of a level 2 or dysphagia mechanical soft diet. And that diet is really very easy to chew and all has kind of similar textures. One of the biggest things with this diet is that the meats are going to be ground or chopped to about 1/4 inch pieces. Everything is in bite-sized amounts. The vegetables or fruits are cooked or canned. Raw fruits and vegetables are avoided. Any kind of large chunks are avoided in foods. Also, this diet is really good to add kind of a little bit of moisture to some of the drier foods like gravy, broth, sauce. Really helps to chew that food up well. Our third level, or dysphagia advanced diet, is going to be kind of more getting closer to that general diet spectrum. So it's an easy to chew diet with some mixed textures. So there may be some more stews with chunks of cooked vegetables and soft, tender meat. Like I said, the meat will be regular, but it will be really tender, moist, soft, and still pretty easy to chew. We want to still avoid any large chunks of food and being cautious with particular foods that may cause trouble swallowing, like popcorn, nuts, rice, peas, corn. Those are just foods to be very mindful of when eating, or may need to be avoided still with that diet. And again, raw fruits and vegetables aren't usually recommended on that diet as well. And then finally, we have our regular or general diet, where all foods then would be acceptable. All right, I just wanted to mention a couple pieces of equipment that would be recommended, if not essential, if you are on a pureed diet. So we have one main piece of equipment that you really could do most things with is just a simple 2-speed blender. Mandy will kind of show you a visual of that as well. So really, like I said, a simple 2-speed blender can do most things on a pureed diet. Something else that's really helpful to have in the kitchen is just like a miniature or a regular food processor. Especially a mini food processor, is really great to do just individual portions and can be cleaned up really easily. And then that Ninja, which Mandy just laid out, again, really nice piece of equipment to do individual portions. So maybe you're preparing a meal for your loved one or family member, and only one side dish isn't the appropriate consistency. You could just throw that into a little miniature food processor, a Ninja, or even just the 2-speed blender, and make that consistency appropriate then. Okay. And then if you are on a thickened liquid diet, you will probably need a thickener to thicken those liquids. So I just wanted to touch on kind of a second generation of thickeners that are out there now, and those are the gum-based thickeners. So they use the ingredient xylitol gum to thicken the liquids. Previously, we were used to using this more first-generational thickeners, which use starch as the main thickening agent. And that would be, you guys may have heard of Thicket. That's sort of one of the original thickeners. Again, it's a starch-based thickener. The problem with those is that they thicken up over time. So you may make a glass of juice for breakfast, and an hour later, that nectar juice is now more of a honey or pudding consistency. So it's really not appropriate for that person anymore. So these gum-based thickeners are really great. They don't change the flavor of the beverage, just the viscosity, and they stay stable over the course of time. So I know even you can make a big batch and stick it in the fridge, and the next day it'll still be that nectar or that honey consistency. Here at the hospital, I just want to mention a few thickeners that are on the market today. Here at the hospital, we use Simply Thick. It's a gel-based thickener that comes in single-serve packets and is available in nectar and honey. Then there are also a couple other ones out there that can be purchased at most Walmart or Walgreens pharmacies. One is Nestle Resource Thicken Up Clear, and the other is Hormel Thicken Easy Clear. And then just another word about these gum-based thickeners is the versatility of them. So they can be used in carbonated beverages. They actually the beverage doesn't lose carbonation when you add the thickener into it, which is really great. They can be used to thicken ice cubes. So if we make, a glass of nectar thick water for a person, and they want ice cold water and add regular ice to it, then we're actually diluting that beverage, and so it's no longer a nectar consistency. So we can actually use that thickening agent to make ice cubes ahead of time. It's compatible with soluble laxatives, and it even will thicken your favorite alcoholic beverage. So your beer or wine, again, doesn't change the flavor, just the consistency to make it safe. Okay, and then I just wanted to mention briefly a couple of really great resources that are out there today, and one is this book. It's called Easy to Swallow, Easy to Chew Cookbook. It is written by a speech-language pathologist, a dietitian, and a doctor who all specialize in dysphagia research out of they've done their research at the Veterans Hospital in Madison, Wisconsin. So all three professionals have kind of put together their expertise into this one cookbook. It's really fabulous resource. It's divided into two parts. The first part is on understanding swallowing and swallowing difficulties. So the first part kind of reviews the anatomy of how we swallow. There's some really great pictures and illustrations, and it's discussed really in layman's terms. So you don't have to have any really medical background to be able to understand the knowledge that they want to share with you. The second section talks on safe swallowing tips, including different postural and positioning techniques. It goes over reflex precautions, mentions different eating and drinking aids and oral hygiene techniques and tips that are useful. The third part goes over the tailored food textures and nutrition tips. So it uses the same verbiage that I discussed earlier with the different dysphagia level diets. So it talks in terms of easy to chew with mixed textures, which would translate to a dysphagia advanced. Very easy to chew with similar textures, which would translate to a mechanical soft, and then soft and smooth, which would be the pureed diet. And then the fourth section gives some tips for common issues related to swallowing. So things like a dry or sore mouth, weak tongue, coughing or choking during meals, kind of goes over some of those common complaints, and then tips and suggestions for each of those. The second part of the book goes into the recipes, and as you can see, there's quite a few different sections. There's 9 different sections here. The cookbook has over 150 really easy, healthy, delicious recipes that are really pretty simple to make at home. So we're lucky today we have Executive Chef Ron Hall to demonstrate 3 different recipes from this cookbook. He will be doing 2 from the main courses category. One is a saucy meatball recipe. And that texture is very easy to chew, so again, appropriate for a mechanical soft diet. And then it can also be modified to a pureed diet by just using a food processor. He's going to do a shrimp with pasta salad, and that's going to be appropriate for somebody on a dysphagia level 3 advanced diet. So it's categorized as a very easy to chew texture. And then, just easy to chew texture. And then he will finish, I'm guessing, with the dessert, which is the Bananas Foster recipe. And that is characterized as a very easy to chew, or could be soft and smooth if you mash the bananas or cut them into really small pieces. But like I said, most all of the recipes included in the cookbook can be modified to the appropriate diet just using a simple food processor or blender. And throughout the cookbook, they have the nutrition information for each recipe, as well as tips on if you need to modify the recipe further. Finally, the book has just 2 appendices at the end. Appendix A goes over some dietary supplements. It has really common supplements used to boost your nutrition intake, and the nutrition information on all of those. So things like Boost, Ensure, Glucerna, those are just a few mentioned. Appendix B goes over a few more resource and product information. So there's things of how to access educational material on dysphagia, how to order some of their recommended food products, liquid thickeners, as well as support organizations, some national organizations that are out there that would be really great resources. Overall, the book costs, I think, about $16, so really not a super expensive investment. Okay, and the last resource I wanted to mention was dysphagiasolutions.com. And it is a website that's put together by a dietitian who specializes in dysphagia. And her name is Laura Michael. She's fabulous. She does all of her work out of Phoenix, Arizona. But she has made a care manual that looks like this. It's just a simple 3-ring binder that includes quite a bit of information on dysphagia, nutrition information, and then she's included quite a few recipes in this cookbook as well. So a really nice resource to have, especially if you're kind of new at making some of these modified food textures. I'd also encourage you to check out her blog. She has posted quite a few videos on how to make thickened liquids, and then she'll constantly update it with new recipes that she's trying as well. So there's that book. It's called Making Every Bite Count. For that care manual, and it costs about $37 with shipping. Like I said, it ships out of Arizona. Okay, and these are just a couple of pictures that she's included on her website that shows different recipes that she's modified to make appropriate for people on, this would be for a pureed diet, so there's a pureed hot dog and a pureed ham sandwich on marble with rye, or on marble rye with mustard. Okay, and finally, I just wanted to conclude this part of the presentation by saying that we know the importance that good food has on a person's quality of life, both their physical and mental aspect of their life. And our mission today is really just to show you guys that modified foods can be really easy, delicious, and healthy. So we know that a good food leads to a good life. And then if you guys, I guess I can open it up now if you guys have any questions about this part of the presentation from the audience. No? But if you guys have questions later when you get home, maybe you know someone else who has trouble swallowing and might have some questions or concerns, feel free to give them our contact information. Here at the hospital, our phone number's 319-339-3923, and we're also available via email. So without further ado, I think I will kind of hand this presentation over then to Chef Ron, who will demonstrate 3 recipes from that cookbook I mentioned.
All right, so the first recipe I'm going to do today is a shrimp pasta salad. And it calls for a small shell pasta. So I have just a real small kind of shell pasta they cooked off earlier and chilled down. Gonna spread that around a little bit here. Shrimp, I cooked the shrimp off. Now, the shrimp is probably the biggest thing in this recipe, and you can certainly take and cut that up, chop it, dice it, mince it up a little finer if you needed to. There's some finely diced red pepper, again, real small. Same with the red onion, very small dice. And I have some frozen peas we cooked earlier. Soften those up a little bit. So everything in this recipe, with the exception of the shrimp, is a very small piece, not very much bigger than the pea itself. So if you had any issues there, you could take the shrimp, like I said, and just chop it up a little finer. Then we're going to make the dressing, and the dressing has a low-fat mayonnaise. This is to get the calories down, but if you were wanting more calories in your diet, you could certainly go with the full mayo. There's a fat-free sour cream. There's 1/4 cup of that. Tablespoon of lemon juice. Sugar, dill, and tarragon. So that's your dressing. Just mix it up real well. You could make that dressing up ahead of time, you know, the evening before if you wanted to, or the meal before. Have all your ingredients chilled up, and it only takes you a few minutes to put it together. But you can see it's a nice colorful salad, quick to put together. If you didn't want the shrimp, you could use surimi, the crab, the imitation crab meat. Just mince it up real fine, throw it in there. And that's the first recipe. And Stacy, would you want to maybe pass a few samples around for everybody to try out there? You can certainly take that, and then I'll go ahead and set up for the next recipe. So the next recipe is going to be a saucy meatballs. It's similar to your regular meatloaf. You know, the difference being you don't have any diced onions in there. You're using some onion powder. Everything's going to be real fine in there. But it's a traditional ground beef and your breadcrumbs and your seasoning. So it starts out with the ground beef. Little glove on here. There's a pound and a half of ground beef. Cup of dried breadcrumbs, some salt, pepper, some garlic, 1 egg, and you're just going to work that up like you would any other meatloaf and make it into individual meatballs. I made some of this earlier so we could try it out, and it's a nice saucy dish. The meatballs are pretty small. You could take and put those in a blender or mash those up, have more like a meat sauce if you wanted to. And this could be served over noodles. Well, then I've got a scoop here just for a little small portion, tablespoon size. Just, you know, not very big. And you go ahead and make those up, and then we'll make the sauce. And you just put the sauce over the raw meat, cover it, and bake it in the oven. We'll do the sauce part of it next. Cranberry sauce, chili sauce, ketchup, lemon juice, and a little bit of brown sugar. The consistency is going to be a little on the thick side. Once you bake that off, it's going to be a little saucier than what it is here, like that cranberry when that melts down. So that's, again, it's just a two-step thing. You can do your meatballs ahead. You can have your sauce ready. You come home, pour it over the top, put it in the oven, and then go do whatever you want to do. And it's ready for you. I did have some of that made earlier, so we're going to pass some samples out there. I want to dish a little bit up so we can show for the camera what that looks like also, Stacy. So as you can see, it's just, they're small size, there's plenty of sauce. It's kind of a sweet type sauce. It's not real spicy. If you like it a little spicier, you can certainly add to it yourself and adjust the flavors a little bit. There's plenty of sauce if you want to put, on the noodles so it'll soak that up. One recipe to go then. We're doing some bananas Foster next. Bananas Foster, so it's a pretty fancy, upscale type thing. You need a lot of restaurants, and they'll come and they'll do that table side, and they'll put the rum in and they'll light the flame up, and it's pretty sharp, but basically you're just dealing with some caramelized bananas, and we're going to put it over some yogurt ice cream, or some soft serve rather. And heat it up here a little bit. If you have some brown sugar, put it in the skillet. Water. All right, so I have some brown sugar in here and some water and some rum, cinnamon and nutmeg. I'm just going to bring that to a boil. Once that comes to a boil, we'll take it off, and I've got a little margarine here. We'll add that to it, get a little of that buttery taste, that mouthfeel to it. We'll add the bananas to it and back onto the stove for a couple minutes. But again, it's just a 5-minute recipe. It doesn't take very long at all to do. Other than standing here watching water boil. I'm going to go ahead and add the margarine to this. If you don't want to use a whole lot of butter, you just add it at the very end. You still get that mouthfeel, that butter taste, but you don't need anywhere near as much. You could cut the butter by half and still get that taste. We want to bring it to a boil because we've got the rum in there. You want to cook that alcohol content out of the rum. And if you're serving in a restaurant or serving at a table side, they will wait till the very end. And they'll put that rum on top, and then they'll just take and tip the pan just a little bit, catch the flame from the burner, and it'll flame up on top, and then they're just burning the alcohol off is all they're doing. Okay, so we're boiling now. I'm going to go ahead and add the bananas. This recipe is, I increased this recipe about 3 times because I wanted to have plenty for everybody to sample, myself included. It'll take it a couple minutes to warm that bananas back up. And then we have some yogurt, soft serve. It's just that, the single bowl, all of it there, we'll just. This would be so easy to just mash up a little bit, and I'm kind of bring this back to a boil a little bit here first. Stir it around, get that all coated real well. The longer you have it in there, the more soft those bananas are going to get. And you have a little bit more sauce then too. Does anybody have any questions on these recipes while we're waiting? They're all pretty basic. The thing that I would add about any of these recipes is, read them first to see you understand everything. But if I'm doing this, I'm kind of wanting to make it for myself. So an example being that saucy meatballs, maybe I want a little bit of basil or oregano or something in there. Just because the recipe doesn't say to put it in there doesn't mean that you can't put it in there. And that's probably true even more so of a lot of your special diet type cookbooks and recipes, is they're focused on, the key components of that cookbook, but sometimes in taking the fat out or taking the calories out, they don't put something in to replace that, to put it back in. So you kind of come up with, something less than what you're expected, kind of a subpar. Then you got hot bananas, the caramel, the yogurt, the hot cold. It's great. We're going to town here now, so I'll dish some up so everybody can try it out a little bit. And if you don't want the rum, you just do without, omit it. You could certainly put in maybe a little bit of orange juice, would be fine for something like this. So again, 3 quick recipes, not a lot of ingredients in any one of them. You could change up, depending on your own personal taste, what you want in there. And you can make them pureed, or you could chop or mash them a little bit, to fit your needs. So, any questions at all? If not, enjoy your dessert. Thank you.
You're watching City Channel 4. On TV, online, on demand, on Facebook, and now on the go on your mobile device.